In 1966, two bodies were discovered in Morro de Vinten, near Niterói, Rio de Janeiro. It did not look like a crime scene, but several pieces of evidence raised more questions than answers. Today, I will talk about the mysterious case of the lead masks. In 1966, Miguel José Viana, 34, and Manuel Pereira de Cruz, 32, were partners in a car dealership in Campos dos Goitacazes, Rio de Janeiro. They were also very close friends and shared a common passion for football. But they also had what society would consider to be a concerning enthusiasm for the occult, spiritualism, and ufology. Both were radio technicians and were knowledgeable about electronics, technology, radio transmissions, and telecommunications. Their adventurous side was not taken very seriously by their families until the day they blew up an entire room in Miguel's house while testing one of his wild ideas. They often discussed scientific experiments, but when it came to matters regarding spiritualism, they had a third friend, the medium Elcio Gomes. Elcio is described by Miguel and Manuel's wives as a bothersome, who holed up in their houses, talking until dawn. Their colleague Valdir Cardoso, who worked with them in the workshop, was often invited to join in these conversations. What they didn't know was that, in addition to Elcio, Miguel and Manuel spoke all night with a Dr. Samuel and a Dr. Paulo, two spirits incorporated by Elcio. During these meetings or spiritualist sessions, the guys talked about the dilemmas of life, the enigmas of humanity, and from time to time about the aliens who inhabit other planets in the universe. The friends met frequently. They would mysteriously leave in the middle of the night without saying where they were going. They would spend hours in the workshop, claiming to be working on a new project. On the night of June 13th, 1966, an important incident led them to consider a new experiment. At Elcio's invitation, the three friends went to a beach called Atapona. Elcio said that they would witness a unique phenomenon, and in fact, that did happen. There was an immense flash of light. It appeared that a ball of fire crossed the night sky and forcefully hit the water, permeating the air with a strong smell of sulfur. After that, a huge explosion was heard in the same location. Many people reported being scared by the noise, but no one witnessed what caused the sound. At the time, the Brazilian Navy itself investigated the case, but found no traces of whatever caused the bang. Completely perplexed, the friends returned home, and no matter how much they talked to one person or another about what they witnessed that night, no one seemed to find the matter credible. Elcio distanced himself from them a little, due to his lack of discretion. They kept in touch, but less frequently than before. 2 months later, the wives of Miguel and Manuel noticed that the men looked worried and anxious. Miguel's brother noted that he often spoke about an important experience he would have with Manuel. On August 16th, 1966, Miguel and Manuel announced that they were to travel to São Paulo the following day, to purchase a car and equipment for the workshop. It is from here that things started to get strange. On the afternoon of August 17th, Miguel and Manuel left, taking with them 2.3 million cruzeiros, the equivalent of $500 today. But instead of going to São Paulo, as intended, the two went to Niterói in Rio de Janeiro. The journey was very short. They had a clear destination, the top of Morro do Vinten, a place known for its hiking trails. Before venturing into the forest, they visited at least 2 establishments, an electronics store owned by an old acquaintance and a bar where they bought water and raincoats. The waitress who served them said that Miguel appeared very nervous and was constantly looking at his wristwatch. A storm was forecast for that day, but this did not deter them from their project. According to a watchman in the area, the men were dropped off at the location by two friends in a jeep. After that, the two were not seen for 3 days until their remains were discovered on the 20th. Jorge Alves, an 18-year-old boy who was playing with kites near the hill, first came across the bodies. They were lying face down, covered with some vegetation. He reported his discovery to a local guard, but was ignored. But soon after, locals noticed the strong smell and the presence of vultures attracted attention. The news spread, and police and firefighters went up the hill to collect the bodies, which were already in an advanced state of decomposition. The case could have ended there, but this was just the beginning of a confusing mystery. Firstly, the bodies were well dressed. They were wearing suits, raincoats, and there were no signs of violence. Almost all their belongings were intact. Next to them were empty water bottles, an aluminum cone, towels, a paper with physics equations, and surprisingly, 2 lead masks. The two were not using the masks which they later discovered had been made by them in their own workshop. The anti-radiation glasses were lying next to the bodies. As if that wasn't strange enough, authorities also found a very strange note that said, 4:30, be at the designated location. 6:30, take capsule after effect. Protect metals. Wait for signal. Mask. Of the more than 2 million cruzeros they took, $500, only $160,000, $40, were found. But the fact that the bodies had lain exposed for 3 days raised the possibility of looting. They did not rule out the hypothesis that it was a premeditated robbery, the crime of robbery followed by death. An investigation was soon underway, but it didn't take long for a series of events to impede the work carried out by the police. First, the bodies were taken to the local morgue, but because the bodies were already in an advanced state of decomposition, a conclusive examination was not possible. Through negligence or oversight, a toxicological analysis was not carried out. Meanwhile, Detective Genancio Betancourt investigated the story. No possibility was ruled out. Murder, suicide, drug abuse, and even electrical discharge were some of the hypotheses considered. Following countless interrogations, Elcio Gomez was the first person to be arrested as a suspect. Elcio vehemently denied that he knew the purpose of his friend's trip. He claimed that the last time he saw them was at the bus station and that they both told him they were going to Sao Paulo to buy a car, just as they told their families. Due to a lack of incriminating evidence, Elcio was released. For Detective Saulo de Souza, there were still many holes in the story, one of which was the gap of more than 1 hour between their arrival in Niterói and entering the electronics store. For Saulo, they must have made an unidentified stop before that. As time passed, more theories were posited. The case grew in the media and the men were linked to religious sects and ufology. Things became even more bizarre when the police noted a UFO sighting at the same location. A resident of the region, Gracinda Barbosa, her husband and daughter, claimed to have seen an oval object at the peak of the hill. They said it released rays and emitted a very bright light. According to Gracinda, this occurred on the day that Miguel and Manuel arrived at the scene. The bodies, despite being partially decomposed, had no sign of charring. However, the potential contact with alien beings was intensely explored by the media. The papers sought to find a connection between the two stories. It was there that Valdir, the workshop worker, appeared as a key witness. He came forward of his own free will, as he had not even been mentioned by other people, including Elcio. Valdir was the one who confirmed the story about spiritual encounters and the beach experience. According to him, everything was out of this world. They witnessed an unusual phenomenon and left as quickly as they could. The pieces seemed to fit together, but Valdir's testimony was vague. Perhaps he feared being investigated, as the Atapona episode had mobilized the region's military force at the time. Another interesting figure made the whole story even more bizarre. Father Oscar González Quevedo gave an interview to Globo at the time. The priest explained what could have happened to the two guys on that fateful day. He said that about 2 years earlier, a man had died under similar circumstances in another city. He explained that in sects and occult groups, there is a theory that to enter other dimensions, it is necessary to open the mind, or the pineal gland, also known as the third eye, in the middle of the forehead, and that to do this, it is necessary to ingest psychedelics combined with electrical stimulation. Masks would be used to protect against intense light or radiation. It's worth remembering here that there is no scientific proof that these experiments really work. Most of the time, these ideas have no foundation, and no one is known to have survived to tell the story of what this supposed other side is like. The case caught the attention of famous ufologists, including Jacques Vallée, a NASA consultant. An expedition to the site later reported that the soil around the entire perimeter where the bodies were found was contaminated, making it impossible for vegetation to grow. One of the detectives investigating the case, Genancio Bittencourt, died suddenly following a heart attack. The most curious thing was that this happened when he was on a walk in the city of Campos dos Goitacazes. Other people involved with the case, such as Commissioner Oscar Nunes and 2 police officers, also died shortly afterwards. Some evidence, such as the note with the equation, was stolen from the police station safe, and those people who took them in a jeep to the place of death were never identified. The hypothesis that there was a third person involved in the experiment was much debated, but it was impossible to confirm. With no apparent solution, the case was closed 3 years later. To this day, the lead mask case remains a great enigma that has never been solved. Many of the people involved in the case have passed away. Thus, the case remains unresolved, making it a very interesting story for conspirators and theorists. If you've made it this far, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to this channel. Also, add your opinion in our comments. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next case.